It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. When I first heard this quote, I agreed. I remember growing up as a very sheltered Mormon girl who had built up this world in which she was comfortable and secure. And I didn't like knowledge because I was afraid of knocking down that world that I had built for myself. I went to school. I went to high school, memorized the facts, got the diploma, and went on with my life. I went to college with that very same intention, to go to school, memorize the facts, and get the diploma. But I ran into a philosophy class, and what happened was I was forced to think about things in a way I'd never considered before. And because of that, my world shattered, and I had to see things in a new perspective. And I knew instantly that I needed more knowledge. Now, that experience seems to match up with what John Stuart Mill is saying. He is, after all, saying that happiness isn't simply base pleasure. Happiness requires us to use our higher faculties, like obtaining knowledge or using our reason. But I have a problem with John Stuart Mill's assertion that it is necessarily better to be a dissatisfied Socrates than a satisfied pig. After all, look at the life of a pig. They get to take lots of naps, eat whenever they want, and sunbathe. That doesn't sound too bad. And look at what happened to Socrates. Death by hemlock, not fun stuff. So, the purpose of my speech today is to examine this. If being an intellectual like Socrates may be a little overrated. So let's play a game. For the first half of my speech, I'm going to be talking about why Mill is right. I'm going to defend his position on why we need knowledge and exactly how we can obtain it. Then I'm going to turn around and talk about why we don't need knowledge and exactly how we can avoid it. Before I begin, it may be of some importance to talk about what I mean by knowledge. For many philosophers, knowledge is true, justified belief. For something to be knowledge, we must begin with the idea of belief. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, belief is an acceptance that something is true or that something exists. But for it to be knowledge, it has to be much more than that. For example, if I said, I know Channing Tatum's birthday is April 26th, it would hardly be considered knowledge if the only basis for my belief were that I had opened randomly to a calendar, pointed to a day, and said, that is Channing Tatum's birthday. However, if I asked my sister, who is a die-hard Channing Tatum fan and self-proclaimed wife of the man himself, what his birthday was, and she said April 26th, that would better be considered as knowledge. For it to be knowledge, it must also be true. For me to say, I know Channing Tatum's birthday is April 26th, his birthday would actually have to be on April 26th. You may have a belief in something that is false, but you can't know something that is false. Now, finding out how something is true is a little bit more complicated than that, but that's a subject for another day. Let's talk about why do we need knowledge? Knowledge is something that we get all worked up about. Look at us. Most of us have gone to school for at least 9 years. Some have gone to school for an additional 4. Some of us are still in school. We pay a lot of money, undergo a lot of stress, and spend a lot of time to get a piece of paper that tells other people how knowledgeable we are. Not everyone goes to school for the diploma, though. Some of us go to school because we want to please our parents. Some of us go to school because we want to follow our favorite sports team. Some of us go to school because we want to get married. You know who you are. If you can believe it, some of us go to school because we want to learn, because knowledge increases the domain of our lives. If you imagine we're like a goldfish swimming in a goldfish bowl, the goldfish bowl would be our domain of life. As we reach out and make more connections with the world around us, we'll have more thoughts, more emotions, and more relationships to live with. In the classic book, 1984 by George Orwell, it talks of a society that have adopted a new language called Newspeak. And in this language, there is no word for the concept of freedom. Even though these people were severely oppressed, they had no word with which to express it. In an equally chilling dystopian novel, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, it speaks of a society focused only on pleasure. They even have pills called soma that they can pop into their mouths and feel momentary boosts of pleasure. There's a character in that book who rejects the society, who rejects the soma pills. In fact, he famously said, I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. I'm claiming the right to be unhappy. The leader reminds him if he is making this claim, he is claiming the right to grow old, to grow ill, to become tortured by unspeakable pains of every kind. The savage thinks about that and he says, I claim them all. Now, what would prompt him to make such a bold claim like that? In 1984, because their society was limited, they had removed an important concept, their domain of life could not grow. Again, in Brave New World, because they could only focus on pleasure, their domain of life again was limited. And the savage recognized that. He knew the importance of having a domain of life that could grow and increase. So second, we need knowledge because knowledge increases the quality of our life. If we go back to that goldfish bowl, the larger our goldfish bowl is, the more space we will have for true, deep happiness, like this castle. The larger our goldfish bowl is, though, if we don't fill it correctly, the more space we have for emptiness, which is like disappointment and misery. So there is a greater risk to greater happiness. We also want knowledge because knowledge increases the quality of the soul. As our domain of life increases and our capacity for life increases, we have more thoughts to work with. Too often, the way that we obtain our beliefs is the same way we catch a cold. Someone walks by, sneezes an idea, and we accept it without any further thought. But if we have thoughts in the world that we live in, we're able to reevaluate the beliefs that we hold, look at them, and say, is that really rational to believe? So far, knowledge sounds like a pretty good idea, but we're going to want to observe both sides of the coin. You see, what something is important for depends on what our end goal is. If our end goal is comfort and security, then we don't want knowledge, because knowledge will destroy exactly that. So what do we really want? Let's observe the way that we live our lives, because that'll tell us what we really want. Mr. Mill, we are perfectly content with watching hour after hour of our favorite TV drama, Netflix binging, if you will. We don't mind relying on Facebook to tell us what reality is like. In fact, we form many of our beliefs on what we see posted on our wall. We would love to stay in the shadows, alone in the dark, so long as we have our electronic gadgets with us. We don't care about true, deep happiness. We want pleasure. We want comfort and security. We don't want to know. Now, Mill would disagree, of course. He would say, we do need knowledge. In fact, he says, let's look at what Socrates, the granddaddy of all truth seekers, says about knowledge. In a dialogue called Meno asks Socrates, how can you ever learn anything? If you're searching for something where you don't know where it is, you'll never find it. But if you already know where it is, there'd be no reason to learn it. So Socrates agrees. In fact, he says, we never really learn anything. All of our learning is simply remembering what we once knew in a past life. Socrates is also famous for his allegory of the cave. I'm sure most of you have read it. For those of you who haven't, here's the short version. It's an allegory about a cave. It's often likened to enlightenment and truth-seeking. In fact, Socrates' point in this allegory is that as we're ascending from the cave of ignorance to truth and to knowledge, it's going to be uncomfortable. In fact, it may even be painful, and we may not like it. It may sometimes take another person to drag us out of the cave to truth and knowledge. But the journey, Socrates says, is worth it because we will see things as they really are. Even if we could have knowledge, why would we want it? What would it do to us? You see, like I mentioned earlier with the goldfish bowl, the larger goldfish bowl we have, the larger risk we run for misery. Socrates himself said that knowledge can be uncomfortable and even painful. Knowledge may force us to reevaluate the beliefs that we hold dear, may shake up the very beliefs that we love and hold on to. In fact, knowledge may force us to say sometimes that we were wrong, and that's never a comfortable feeling. Knowledge requires us to work, to think about things in a way we have never thought about before. So we don't want that because we can't possibly handle a life of discomfort or a life of insecurity. We can't possibly handle knowledge. Now, Mill, again, he's going to disagree, and he's going to say, we do need knowledge, and here is how we can get it. First, we're going to want to proportionalize our world. There is a story of a woman named Mary Johnson. Her only son was murdered by a 16-year-old boy named O'Shea Israel. When he was released from prison years later, Mary Johnson went to visit him, and she hugged him. She says she remembers feeling all that anger and animosity that she had in her heart for years disappear because she had forgiven him. How is something so incredible accomplished? In fact, Mary Johnson and O'Shea Israel live as neighbors now, and their relationship is similar to that of a mother and a son. You see, I think forgiveness is not about forgetting the event that happened. Forgiveness is about giving that event due proportion. When we become angry, we blow things out of proportion. We focus on it so much that it becomes our world, and there is nothing else. Mary Johnson was able to look at that event, not forget it necessarily, but give it due proportion and see a world of more full possibilities. For us to obtain knowledge, second, we're going to want to make our world a little more accurate. When I first met the man that would one day become my husband, I became a complete idiot. Now, not because I married him, mind you, because I love him very much, but because I became your typical in love with love, airhead, young adolescent. I didn't think about what I was doing. In fact, all I knew about love was from what I watched from movies like Twilight and The Notebook, which is obviously problematic. I thought that love was a feeling that came and went, and a feeling I had no control over. Around this time, I was with this man, and I often would recognize that I didn't always feel this way for him, and I wondered, do I really love him? That made me very anxious because I was about to marry him. Around this time, I was learning in my introductory philosophy class about Immanuel Kant, an 18th century German philosopher, who said one cannot be praised for something that one has no control over. For example, if someone came up to me and praised me for being Asian, that'd be very strange, because I didn't do anything to become Asian. I was simply born this way. It'd be as odd as praising a squirrel for being furry, or a tree for being green, or a human for being human. You get the point. The thing is, I thought love was a feeling I had no control over, and if that was the case, then that love could not be praisable. But I knew that love must be something praisable. So I scrapped the idea of love being a feeling, and I later came to the conclusion love must be a decision to love and care for someone despite what I currently felt, despite sometimes what they did, and despite circumstances. That was praisable, and that was more accurately defined as love. Third, for us to have knowledge, we're going to want to live in an expanding world. Back to the goldfish, we're going to want to demand a larger goldfish bowl like the savage did. We're going to want to grow and see more of the world. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but we don't want knowledge, so that's all useless. We're going to do the exact opposite then to avoid knowledge. So first, let us disproportionalize our world. We want to be angry? Let us be angry. In fact, let us focus on whatever we want to focus on, or better yet, let's not focus at all. Let us multitask. Let us not read, let us not write, let us not think or discuss. Let us focus on that all-important text message when there is a beautiful, living, unique human being standing right next to us. Let us live in an inaccurate world. Let us never consider the idea that we could possibly be wrong. In fact, let us pick and choose what we want to believe in our little world, despite what may be out there. Let us live in a limited world. The savage demanded a larger goldfish bowl. What a silly idea. We want comfort. We want security. So let us remain in whatever pleasures we choose. So, thank you, Mr. Mill, but no thank you. We want to stay pigs. We want to stay fools. We want to stay at the bottom of the cave with our TV screens and our family-sized pack of potato chips, safe in our ignorance, comfortable in our limited capacities, and debilitatingly stubborn. What do we really want? Is our ultimate goal really comfort and security? Because most of us live that way. But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin. I am claiming the right to be unhappy and to be joyous beyond belief. I'm claiming the right to feel awe, realizing that my world thus far has been wrong, but now I know better. I'm claiming the right to come closer and closer to my God as I more accurately shape my knowledge of him. I'm claiming the right to feel passion, to feel wonder, to feel truly, deeply happy. I claim the right to know. What do you claim?